Let me start, Presiding Officer, by thanking Gil Patterson for bringing this important subject to Parliament. There are very few of us will not, at some stage in our life, meet death. It is an inevitable part of being here in the first place. But of course, when the death is of a child, of someone who is younger than us, we feel that death most acutely. Not simply because it reminds us personally of our own mortality, but because, of course, we experience the loss of someone who is precious to us. Now, one of my personal interests is genealogy, and I just happened to have been going through doing a bit of a longitudinal study of the St Giles parish in this city, which basically we're just on the edge of, 150 years ago. And 150 years ago, 50% of children born did not reach, in this relatively well-off parish, did not reach the age of 10, and half of those who died before the age of 1. Today, we've vastly improved our care and our ability to deal with a range of conditions and diseases that affect our young. So that throws into even more stark relief the sudden, unexpected death, often unexplained, that comes under the general heading of cot death. Because, of course, it isn't one cause, and we don't always satisfactorily identify the cause of the death. But as the numbers of young children who die has diminished, the pain and the sense of guilt that parents can feel when that happens is substantially increased. My father, as a GP, described bereavement in 5 stages: as denial, often very short, that you kind of don't accept it's happened; blame, where you blame yourself for something you didn't do; blame others because things were not done; depression; and finally accommodation, where hopefully you've come to terms with it and put the happy memories you've had of the person who departed into some context that you will carry forward for the rest of your life. And a child, even of the briefest period on this earth, will leave memories for their parents and for all who've known them. I have not been in the fortunate position of being a father myself. I'm told I'm a relatively well-trained uncle, now great-uncle, godfather, and perhaps in the not-too-distant future, great-great-uncle. So while not personally experiencing fatherhood, I've watched and stood with those who have been parents and seen their pride and excitement when they bring new life in that will take over from those of us who are perhaps now contemplating more acutely than we once did our own mortality. So, as the position of cot death has become more important as a source of young people not making it to adulthood, the importance of having the right kind of support in place has substantially increased. And I think that is where the Cot Deaths Trust is to be utterly congratulated for the work that they do. It's draining to support someone who is in mental despair, who has experienced loss. It is expensive because it takes time to provide counselling to people. It's not just a pill for a week. It's support, often for a very extended period of time. And over the last 30 years, we've seen the work of the Scottish Cot Death Trust supporting parents across Scotland, and indeed working with others beyond Scotland, I understand. And as Gil Patterson's motion makes clear, in his own constituency, supporting the next infant support programme for bereaved parents. Bespoke services, the motion talks about, through pregnancy and for the first year after birth, through things like monitors. Now, there is one little thing we need to kind of think about. It's right and proper that we provide advice as to how we can minimise the occurrence of cot death. And Margaret McCulloch highlighted quite a few of the pieces of advice that there are. But I think it's equally important that we reassure parents that it will not be their fault that a child has experienced cot death. They may have followed all the advice. They may not have been aware of some of the advice. But it almost certainly, in 99 cases out of 100, probably higher, it will not be the parents' fault. And of course, that is precisely why the Trust has to be there, to reassure and support those parents who don't know what more they could have done. And the answer may be there is nothing more they could have done. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.